Thank you. Have you ever felt the world stop spinning? I have. Have you ever felt the air escape from around you, like you're in a vacuum, and feel the air get sucked from your lungs as you struggle to grab on to anything and everything, but nothing is around you? No one is around you. Everything gets quiet and still. You could hear a pin drop, except you can't hear anything at all. Then boom! Reality hits you like a punch in the gut, and sound and motion and light and feeling comes back faster than you can process it, knocking the wind out of you. It's sobering. I felt the world stop spinning on October 13th, 2015, when I suffered from a terrible act of violence. I was at a party, entertaining clients, having the time of my life. I was at the peak of my career. Then my brother called me. I have something to tell you. To this day, I've tried to make sense of the way my little brother sounded on the phone. He was 25 at the time, but sounded so unsure, so insecure, almost like a child. But at the same time, he sounded the most protective of me he's ever sounded. He said 2 words: "Mom's dead." I ran out of the party feeling like my legs in the ground were crumbling underneath me. And with what seemed like my last breath of air, I muttered, "How?" "She was murdered," he said. "Her roommate shot her in the head and then killed himself." Nothing in life prepares you for news like this, and I stopped breathing. I felt like my chest was imploding. The pain was unbearable. And as I fell to the ground, I yelled out, "Somebody call 911. I thought I was having a heart attack. Every time I tell this story, I'm confronted with my own bouts of PTSD. My palms get sweaty. I get chills and goosebumps on my entire body, and I really have to focus to control my breathing. If you've experienced a major trauma in your life, you can picture this darkness. It's interesting how trauma has a way of showing you who you really are and what you're made of. This was the defining moment in my life. It was the end, and it was the beginning for us. When we got the news, my brothers and I immediately jumped into action. I organized my family and my life as much as I could, and within 48 hours, had made a plan to move myself and my 2 daughters back home to California. You know, I was in the Army for 6 years, and in the Army, we have to do this course called land navigation. And what that means is they give city girls like me from LA a compass, a map, a pencil, and some points that we're supposed to plot on our map. And they send us off in the woods by ourselves to find our points. Or in my case, they send us off in the woods by ourselves to get completely lost. And we had around 4 hours to complete our course and make it back before they would send out somebody looking for us. Can you imagine this? Setting out into the woods by myself with nothing but a map, a pencil, a compass, and by the way, I wasn't allowed to talk to anybody. Like I said, I'm from LA. I did not go into the woods. The only experience I ever had with a map was handing my mom a Thomas guide back in the 90s. And for those of you who don't know what that is, think Waze meets an encyclopedia. So when I set out to do my land navigation course, I thought not only was I destined to fail, but there was a high likelihood that I was going to fall into a bottomless pit of poison ivy and get eaten alive by ticks. The drill sergeants must have seen the horror on my face, because before I went out there, they stopped me and asked me a question that has stuck with me ever since. He said, Private, do you know what it means to find your last known point? I said, my last known what, drill sergeant? He said, if you get lost out there, and you will, don't panic, look around, and go back to your last known point. That was your last point that you remember how to get back to on your map, and from there, you can replot your course and find your way. Sometimes the road ahead is unclear, and the only way to get back on track is to figure out exactly where you came from. I mention this because here it was exactly 9 years after I finished land navigation and basic training, and I found myself feeling the most lost I've ever felt in my entire life. I had to deal with my mother's murder. I had my 2 daughters and my 2 little brothers that were looking up for me for help and for guidance. And I wanted to panic. If I had the energy, I would have lost it. I felt so scared and remembered saying, I'm so lost. Where do I go from here? I may sound crazy, but in that moment, I thought of last known point. To be honest, as sad as I was that my mother was gone, I was really angry. I never felt like my mother loved me. I never felt good enough, smart enough, pretty enough. I didn't fit in school, and I didn't even feel like I fit in with my own family growing up. I was pissed. My mother was gone, and I didn't even get the chance to prove to her that I was good enough. And now she's gone. I wanted to scream, and I did, at the top of my lungs. I played that land navigation scene again in my head over and over, and realized that my last known point was my Army career. In the Army, I was an expert. I was needed. I was part of a team. People liked me. It was the last place where I felt safe and had a sense of belonging, and like what I'm doing matters. I was completely perplexed by this, because by this point so far in my military career, I was not identifying with my experiences or my strengths as a veteran. I realized, like so many veterans, when we leave the military, we feel lost, not quite knowing how to identify or connect the experience we learned in the military to what we aspire to be when we transition. We lose our identity, often drifting through life a little lost, searching for our next mission and tribe, chasing that sense of belonging. Who in here is a veteran? Veterans are superheroes. We're wired to serve. Yet so many of us get lost in the transition between our admirable military careers and civilian aspirations. For many veterans like me, we only start to understand what we want to be when we grow up after we transition from the military. But how do we bridge the gap between the loss of identity we face when we join the military and unlocking all of the unique and essential skills we have as veterans? Here's my thought. Veterans need to feel just as relevant and needed in society as we do when we serve. Civilians often thank us for our service, as if it's a past tense thing. They don't understand that our service doesn't stop when we take off our uniform. In the military, we are taught to be warriors and understand that having a victim mentality will get us killed. We leave the military and bring this warrior mindset into civilian life. Yet we are met with people thanking us for our service as if we are victims and no longer necessary, as if our purpose and cause has ended, as if we belong just outside the realm of regular society. It's a lonely and defeating feeling. Rather than simply thanking a veteran for their service, my goal is that through this journey, together, we will begin to rewrite the veteran narrative and understand the unique value that veterans bring to all communities and organizations. Edward Dietschy and Richard Ryan of the University of Rochester have led the way with an aspirational framework known as the self-determination theory. Dietschy and Ryan found that there are 3 psychological needs at the core of this foundation, which is autonomy, competence, and connectedness. Of those three, I believe the greatest are connectedness and competence. In the Army, sergeants are known as the backbone of the Army and called non-commissioned officers. It is a prestigious corps that I'm honored to be a member of and whose creed I still follow today. Feel free to say it with me. To quote our non-commissioned officer creed, competence is my watchword. My two basic responsibilities would always be uppermost in my mind: accomplishment of my mission and the welfare of my soldiers. I am still living this and have lived this in each role since I left the military. The military is one of the few organizations that invests millions of dollars building leaders and subject matter experts. Once we leave the military, we don't lose these skills. In fact, we are more eager than ever to use them and to belong to our next tribe, our next band of brothers and sisters. People often think that we are willing to give our lives to this country, and while we most certainly do give our lives to this country, it is our love for our units, our brothers and sisters in arms, that in the end, we risk our lives for. Sebastian Junger says in the book Tribe, the greatest trauma of war is leaving war. Oftentimes, because that is when we work the best together, united around a common goal. We're banded together. There seems to be a great deal of human potential around belonging and connectedness. It is what we are missing, and the bridge between our past experiences in the military, our traumas, and the futures we desire to live. I was lost, but the hardest part for me was feeling so lonely. So I did what any sane and normal person would do, and I founded a technology startup. If you ever want to feel completely vulnerable, find a million ways to doubt yourself, and feel incredibly lonely, found a startup. Some of you can relate. As you can imagine, this did not work out well for me. I was spiraling out of control and feeling more and more isolated each day. I nearly lost my will to live. But belonging is what saved me. I joined an organization that helps veterans and military spouses interested in entrepreneurship launch, scale, and grow their businesses. It is a community of veteran entrepreneurs and veteran supporters. And from my experience working with this organization, I learned that veterans are not only perfect for running businesses, but we are the leaders the world needs today. I found my tribe again. I was home. Once I felt like I truly belonged and was safe to be myself, I found my purpose again, creating valuable connections, empowering leaders, building communities, and helping the world do business better. From observing the values and traits that have made me successful over the years, as well as hundreds of veterans, I realized we have a unique secret sauce that I call our veteran's edge. I found that we all have these things in common that set us apart from everyone else. We're community builders. We seek vulnerability. We take a stand. We have a winning spirit, and we crave culture. Let's unpack these together. Are you guys still with me? Yes. We are community builders, and we are leaders. In the military, we are exposed to various styles and types of leaders, some great and some not so great. We learn that most importantly, we are part of something larger than ourselves. The higher we move up in rank, the more people we're accountable for, and the larger the communities we have to build. In our communities, organizations, and own businesses, we look for opportunities to lead from our heart with purpose and mission, just like we did when we were in the military. If you want to build a thriving community, have a veteran lead the mission. We seek vulnerability, and we have the courage to show up time and time again. We know what it's like to feel small, and as a result of this, we strive to make those around us feel acknowledged, heard, accepted, and safe. In order to innovate in an organization, you need to trust that you can be vulnerable enough to make mistakes. If you want to feel safe, to contribute and collaborate, have a veteran on your team. We have a winning spirit. David Goggins says, greatness is not something that you meet once and that stays with you forever. You have to be in constant pursuit of it. We know what victory feels like, and we know that oftentimes to achieve victory, we need to work together as a team, overcoming obstacles that can only be achieved through mastering communication and teamwork. What this means is not only do we seek to be heroes, but we seek to bring out the hero in others. If you want to have a winning team, have a veteran as the leader. We take a stand, and we know what it means to stand for something. At one point, we all signed up to give everything up to our lives for this great nation and for one another. But at the end of that, we take a stand and we do what's right, mastering integrity. If you value mission and purpose, trust that a veteran will stand up for what is right. My absolute favorite is that we crave culture. We understand that culture is king and that having a thriving and successful culture starts at the top but affects each and every person that comes into contact with the organization. We seek connectedness, and we will give our utmost for one another. If you value culture, value a veteran in a leadership position. It's been a few years since I've realized my last known point: defining the veteran's edge, working with veteran entrepreneurs, and being part of an organization where I feel accepted, connected, and home. That's my current point. As I'm setting out on new missions, I'm constantly asking myself, what is my last known point? For me, that is my why, my set of values and principles that make me who I am. If you feel lost on your mission to find your greatness, I challenge you to check in with yourself, take a breath, look around, and ask yourself, what is my last known point? Remember, you are not alone on this journey called life. We are on this journey together. For my fellow veterans, I challenge you to think about how your experiences can be applied to business life. We have so much to offer, and we can make a difference. We are making a difference. For those who are not veterans, I challenge you to think about the values and attributes I mentioned above and think how they can be plugged into your communities and organizations. What businesses need, and what stood out to me the most as a business consultant, is that we are so hungry for community, organizational structure, values, and leadership that veterans bring very naturally. In a world of fine, of just getting by, or just good enough, we need leaders who are in constant pursuit of greatness. We cannot continue to evolve, grow, create, build, dream, or achieve without the desire, courage, and ability to strive for greatness. Veterans, we are wired to serve. We are leaders. We are constantly in pursuit of greatness, and we belong. You belong here. Thank you.